My name is Ariana Wells and I'm 28 years old. This Thanksgiving dinner was the night everything finally came into the light. I hadn't visited my parents in months, but my Aunt Diane convinced me to come. She said, "Just one dinner, Ariana. Maybe things will be different this time." I wanted to believe her. I really did. But the moment I walked into the dining room, I knew she was wrong. My mom, Linda, was sitting proudly at the head of the table, glowing with the kind of confidence she only had when she felt superior. My dad, Robert, sat quietly beside her, already looking tired. My sister, Clara, sat across from them, perfect hair, expensive dress, and that same fake smile she always used around me. Dinner started normally. Small talk. Forced laughs. Pretending. But then Mom cleared her throat dramatically and said loud enough for the whole house to hear, "Clara's wedding was so beautiful. Honestly, the most perfect ceremony I've ever seen." She looked directly at me when she said it. People nodded. Some smiled. Claire pretended to blush. Then Mom delivered the line she had clearly been waiting for. "So, Ariana, when will you have yours?" The room froze. Even the spoon in my cousin's hand stopped halfway to her mouth. I sat up straight and said calmly, "I already did. You got the invitations." Mom blinked. Clara stiffened. Dad frowned like he didn't understand English. Finally, Dad said, "We never got anything." Everyone was staring at me, waiting for me to break, waiting for me to look embarrassed. But I didn't. I pulled out my phone, opened the delivery receipts, and placed it right on the table in front of them. 4 signatures. Linda Wells. Robert Wells. Mom's face dropped. The color from Clara's cheeks disappeared. And the whole room went completely silent. I looked right at them and said quietly, "Now I know who sabotaged my wedding." The silence in the room felt like it lasted an entire minute. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Mom stared at the receipts as if they were written in another language. Dad kept shaking his head slowly, like denying reality would change the truth. Finally, Mom snapped back into her usual attitude. "These signatures don't mean anything," she said sharply. "Maybe the delivery guy forged them." I almost laughed. She didn't even try to make it believable. Clara finally spoke, her voice fake soft, the same one she used whenever she was caught doing something wrong. "Ariana, you're misunderstanding. We genuinely never saw any package." I turned my phone around again and tapped the screen. "There's a video too." My Aunt Diane gasped. Clara's fork dropped onto her plate. I pulled up the footage from my apartment building's entry camera, the one I installed because packages kept disappearing. Everyone leaned in, some pretending not to look but clearly watching. And there was my mom and Clara standing at my door, laughing as they picked up the delivery box that held my wedding gown. Clara said, "Can't wait to see her face when she realizes she has nothing to wear." Mom replied, "She should have asked for our approval before choosing a date." The room exploded with whispers. My cousin Emily put her hand over her mouth. Aunt Diane looked like she was about to cry. My uncle just whispered, "Oh my God." Mom stood up so fast her chair fell back. "This is out of context," she yelled. I looked at her. Her eyes weren't angry, they were scared. For the first time in years I had the power. "Out of context?" I repeated. "You stole my wedding gown. You signed for the invitations. You hid them. You made sure nobody came." Dad finally broke his silence. "Linda, tell me you didn't do this." Mom didn't answer. Clara's face turned red, but not from embarrassment, from anger that she got caught. Aunt Diane whispered to me, "Your mom told us you didn't want us there." I nodded. "I know. She told everyone I didn't want family at my wedding. She told Clara to ignore my invitations. She even told people I made up the whole thing for attention." Clara slammed her fork down. "Well, you married someone we didn't approve of. There was the real reason. My husband, the man my family pretended didn't exist." My voice was steady. "You mean Ethan?" A few people stopped whispering. Clara scoffed. "He doesn't even have a real job." I almost smiled. "He co-owns a tech company," I said quietly. "A company worth more than this entire neighborhood." Gasps filled the room. Clara's jaw dropped. Mom's mouth opened but no words came out. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the quiet daughter. I wasn't the one being pushed down or ignored. I was the one telling the truth. And they were the ones exposed. After I mentioned Ethan's company, the room shifted. People who spent years treating me like the less successful daughter suddenly leaned forward as if my words had flipped a switch inside their brains. Clara recovered first. She crossed her arms and said with a bitter laugh, "If he's so successful, why didn't he show it? Why didn't he come here and prove himself?" I looked her straight in the eyes. Because he wanted to see the kind of family he was marrying into. Her fake confidence slipped. She didn't like being the type of person someone needed to test. Mom finally sat back down, slowly, like her legs suddenly felt weak. "You're lying," she said. "You're just saying this to make us feel guilty." I rested my hands on the table, steady. "Guilty about what?" I asked. "Ruining my wedding? Stealing my gown? Throwing away my invitations? Or telling the entire family not to congratulate me?" Gasps again. Everyone in the room was hearing the truth piece by piece, like puzzle parts snapping together. Uncle George leaned forward. "Wait. We heard you eloped with a broke guy." I nodded slowly. "Clara started that rumor." Clara's cheeks turned bright red. "You weren't supposed to find out," she muttered. "It was just, you always act like you're better than me." I cut her off. "I paid for your college." The room froze again. Clara looked at me like I slapped her. Dad's head whipped toward her. "You told us you earned a scholarship." Clara's mouth opened but nothing came out. I continued softly. "I paid your last 2 semesters. Mom forced me to help. She said family comes first." Aunt Diane shook her head in disbelief. "Ariana, why didn't you tell us?" I shrugged. "Because every time I tried, Mom twisted it and said I was being dramatic." Mom jumped in immediately. "It was a small request. You make it sound like we used you." I stared at her. "You also took money for household bills. For Clara's car insurance. For the catering deposit you told everyone Dad paid for." Dad's eyes widened. "Linda, you told me you used my card." Mom's jaw clenched. She didn't deny it. Not this time. Then came the twist even I didn't expect to reveal tonight. But after everything she did, I wasn't afraid anymore. I opened another file on my phone. Bank transfers. Dozens of them. Regular monthly payments. All from me. Clara looked at the amounts like she was seeing a horror movie. "Ariana, you paid the mortgage too?" she whispered. I nodded. "For almost a year." Mom finally snapped. "We raised you. We clothed you. We fed you. You owe us." I stood up slowly from my chair. My voice was calm, but the entire room felt my words like a slap. "I owed you respect. I owed you love. But I never owed you my life savings." Aunt Diane put her hand on her mouth, tears forming. Dad finally stood up too, facing my mom. "Linda, this isn't parenting. This is using." For the first time in my life, he was on my side. I felt something inside me loosen, like a heavy chain finally falling off. And then I said the line that ended the night. "From today forward, I'm done paying your bills." The room erupted again. Mom screamed my name. Clara slammed her hands on the table. Dad stared at both of them like he didn't know who they were. But I didn't sit back down. I didn't take it back. For the first time in 28 years. I chose myself. Mom's face turned red, then pale, then red again. She looked like she couldn't decide whether to scream or faint. Clara stared at me the way someone stares at a fire they started and suddenly can't control. Dad sat back down slowly, rubbing his forehead like he finally realized how many years of lies he had swallowed without noticing. "Ariana, sit down," Mom ordered. Her voice wasn't a request, it was a command. The same tone she used my whole life to shut me up. But this time I didn't sit. I stayed standing, my chair still pushed back. Mom slammed her hand on the table. "How dare you embarrass us in front of the whole family?" I looked around the room. People weren't judging me. They were staring at her. Aunt Diane spoke first. "Linda, she showed us proof. You can't call this embarrassment. You did this to yourself." Mom snapped toward her. "Stay out of this, Diane. This is between me and my ungrateful daughter." Ungrateful. The word hit me like a bullet. Not because it hurt, but because it was the same word she used every time I tried to set a boundary. I breathed out slowly. "Ungrateful." I repeated. "You stole my wedding invitations. You hid my gown. You kept my husband a secret from everyone. And you still think I owe you something?" Clara jumped in, trying to rescue the situation. "Mom only did that because she loves you and wants the best for you." I cut her off. "Clara, do you even hear yourself? You stole from me. You ruined my wedding day. And you didn't care what it did to me. She shrank back in her seat like I slapped her with the truth. Dad cleared his throat, his voice shaking. Linda, is this true? All of it. Mom crossed her arms tightly. I protected this family. That's what I did. Dad looked at her like she was a stranger. From what? Mom didn't answer. Because she had no answer. A heavy silence filled the room. Then my cousin Emily spoke gently. Ariana, what did you want to happen tonight? What do you want now? Everyone turned to look at me. For the first time in years they were listening. I took a breath. I came here to give them one more chance to tell the truth. I looked at my mom and sister. They chose to lie instead. Mom stood up furious. If you walk out that door, don't bother coming back. The same threat she used when I was a teenager. When I wanted a life she couldn't control. But I wasn't 17 anymore. I picked up my coat, straightened my shoulders, and said the words I never had the courage to say. I'm not leaving the family. I'm leaving the abuse. Aunt Diane covered her mouth, crying softly. Emily nodded at me with quiet support. Even Dad looked like he wanted to apologize. Mom tried yelling again, but her voice cracked. Clara looked down at her plate, refusing to meet my eyes. I walked toward the door. Every step felt like freedom. Every breath felt lighter. Right as I reached the hallway, Dad called out softly. Ariana, wait. I turned. His eyes were full of guilt. I didn't know. I should have. But I didn't. I'm sorry. For the first time in years I believed him. I gave him a small nod, the kind that said thank you but also you need to change. Then I walked out of the house. And into my own life. When I stepped outside that night, the cold November air hit my face, but it felt cleaner than any air I had breathed in years. The street was quiet, the sky was dark, and for the first time, my heart wasn't heavy. I sat in my car for a moment, hands on the steering wheel, letting everything settle. My family had lied. Used me. Taken my money. Ruined my wedding. And still tried to act like they were the victims. Walking away didn't feel like losing them. Felt like I finally found myself. I drove home slowly, letting the silence wash over me. When I reached my apartment, Ethan was waiting outside with 2 cups of hot chocolate. He looked worried until he saw my face. You did it, he said softly. I nodded. Yeah. I finally did. He pulled me into a hug, warm and steady, the kind of hug that made all the noise of the night fade away. For the rest of the evening he didn't ask me to explain. He just let me breathe. I woke up feeling lighter. Free. Almost like someone lifted a 100-pound weight off my chest. I made breakfast, checked my messages, and scrolled through family group chats that had suddenly gone silent. Then around noon my phone buzzed. A message from Clara. The same sister who laughed while stealing my gown. The same sister who lied about me to everyone. The same sister who sabotaged everything. Her message was short. Can we talk? I need your help. He left me. I stared at my screen for a moment. So that was it. Her perfect wedding, her perfect life, her perfect image. All falling apart. For a second the old version of me, the one who helped everyone, paid for everything, stayed quiet to keep the peace, tried to speak. But she was gone. I put the phone down, took a sip of coffee, and felt something I wasn't expecting. Peace. Real solid peace. I didn't reply. Not out of cruelty. But because I finally realized something. Saving people who hurt you is not kindness. It's self-destruction. I walked to the window, sunlight filling the room, and whispered to myself. I didn't lose a family. I just stopped begging for love from the wrong people. And for the first time in my life, I felt free.